The wind whispered through the broken windows of the abandoned insane asylum, sending shivers down Carlos's spine. He was the youngest among his group of 4 Hispanic friends, all in their early 20s, gathered there on a dare to hunt for ghosts. The decrepit building loomed like a haunted monolith in the moonlight, its crumbling walls harboring unspeakable horrors from the past. Carlos had always been the skeptic in the group, the one who laughed off ghost stories and found rational explanations for strange occurrences. But as he stepped over the threshold into the asylum's darkness, even his skepticism wavered. The thick, oppressive air weighed on him, and he couldn't shake the feeling that they were being watched. The group carried flashlights and cameras, their excited whispers filling the air as they ventured deeper into the asylum's labyrinthine corridors. Graffiti-covered walls and broken furniture littered the hallways, remnants of the building's sinister history. Carlos could hardly believe he had agreed to come along on this terrifying expedition. As they explored, strange things began to happen. The flashlight beams flickered, casting eerie shadows that danced on the walls. The temperature dropped suddenly and Carlos's breath misted in the air. Alejandro, the bravest of the group, chuckled nervously and blamed it on drafts, but even he couldn't hide the unease in his voice. The group reached the asylum's infamous electroshock therapy room, a place where unspeakable atrocities had occurred. The walls were stained with memories of pain, and the air was thick with malevolence. Carlos felt a heavy hand on his shoulder and jumped, shining his flashlight on empty space. "Did anyone touch me?" Carlos asked, his voice trembling. "No, man. We're all right here," Ricardo replied, his voice shaky. Carlos's heart pounded in his chest as they continued to explore. They entered a ward that had once housed the most violent patients. The walls were adorned with crude drawings of demons and tormented souls, and Carlos couldn't help but feel a growing sense of dread. Suddenly, a blood-curdling scream echoed through the asylum. It was Diego, their friend, and the most skeptical of them all. They sprinted towards the source of the sound, finding Diego in a state of shock. His eyes were wide, and he pointed at a shadowy figure lurking in the corner. Carlos aimed his flashlight at the figure, but it dissolved into thin air, leaving a chilling presence in the room. "What did you see?" Carlos asked, his voice quivering. I saw a woman, but she had no face," Diego stammered. The group decided to leave the asylum, shaken to their core. But as they made their way back to the entrance, they found the exit sealed shut. Panic set in as they pounded on the door, realizing they were trapped inside. The asylum seemed to come alive, its dark secrets conspiring against them. Whispers filled the corridors, unintelligible voices taunting them. Shadows moved with a malevolent intent, and Carlos could swear he saw the twisted faces of long-dead patients leering at them from the corners of the rooms. The asylum was alive with supernatural energy, and it was hungry for their fear. Alejandro led the group deeper into the asylum, searching for an alternate way out. They stumbled upon a basement that had been hidden from the outside world for decades. The air grew colder, and the darkness seemed to deepen as they descended into the abyss. In the basement, they found a room that sent shivers down their spines. It was filled with old, rusted surgical instruments and macabre drawings on the walls. A flickering light bulb swung ominously from the ceiling, casting eerie shadows that danced like specters. The walls seemed to close in on them, and the air grew thick with dread. As they turned to leave, a ghostly figure materialized before them. It was the faceless woman Diego had seen earlier, her spectral form bathed in a sickly, greenish glow. Her mournful wails filled the room, and the group was paralyzed with terror. "We shouldn't have come here," Carlos whispered, his voice trembling. The ghostly woman reached out her bony hand, her fingers inches from Carlos's face. Just as fear threatened to consume him entirely, Alejandro snapped out of his stupor and yelled, "Back off!" He swung his flashlight at the apparition, and it let out a blood-curdling scream before dissipating into a cloud of darkness. The room returned to an eerie silence, broken only by their ragged breaths. With renewed determination, the group made their way back to the basement exit. This time, they found it open, and they burst out into the moonlit night, gasping for air and freedom. The asylum loomed behind them, a dark, foreboding presence in the distance. They had survived their nightmarish encounter, but the scars of that terrifying experience would haunt them for the rest of their lives. Carlos had become a believer in the supernatural that night.